to Washington, D.C. with him one time.
Call to order the Siloam Springs Board of Directors meeting for June 3rd, 2025. Roll call.
Blair. Here. Burns.
Here.
Wiles.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Rissler. Here. Allen.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask that you please stand with me as Director Burns leads us in prayer. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father in heaven, we thank you for the opportunity once again to serve our community. We thank you for those that provide the umbrella of freedom so that we can be here this evening. And it's your name we pray.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. This time, I would like to ask anyone that has an electronic device to please silence that so we don't have an interruption during the meeting, and thank you very much for that. And we will move into our public input time. I would ask if there is anyone here that would like to address the board on an item that is not on our regular agenda. And if so, please come to the podium, give us your name, your address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Ladies first, there you go.
Ladies first.
First 3 minutes.
There you
He
go.
called me lady, huh? Good evening, Mayor and board members. This evening, I'm here on behalf of the Siloam Springs Rotary Club that is at least 101 and a half years old in our community. Many city officers and mayors have been a part of our Rotary Club, so we're very proud of that fact. Just kind of sometimes we don't talk to you all about the civic things that the clubs do in town. And this year we were able to give 500 dictionaries out to the 5th graders. We've donated almost $2,000 to organizations that are helping human trafficking in our area. Hosted an exchange student from Japan, and she left convinced this is the best place next to Disneyland that she's been at. And we were able to present a high school senior a scholarship from Rotary this year. We're also supporting a learning program in Guatemala that Joe Wallencheck has a big part of. It's called Guatemala Can Lead. The young lady started that before she came to JBU as a Walton Scholar. And now she's back there, and kids that she's known and helped have become also Walton Scholars at John Brown University. One of our favorites that we've done is because it affects us here locally, is we've done the Labyrinth Healing Garden, which is next to, which I think now is the Parks and Recreation Office, or that's moved back and forth, but that over by Bob Henry Park. The vision of Stanley Church to provide a space that would be off the beaten path and offer a quieter space to visit and includes a labyrinth will be celebrated once again. On June 4th, Flag Day, we will be dedicating 2 benches in honor of 2 very special men to Rotary and to our community. One is Stanley Church for his vision of the Healing Garden. That was him. It took him 3 years to work with the city. Not that you were difficult, just to refine the vision and come up with what we came up with. And it's just been really a blessing to us, and I hope the community. We will begin gathering on June 14th, Flag Day, and we will begin gathering at 10:30. The dedication will begin at 11 with a short program, and lunch will be provided by Rotary's own grill chef. His name is Bill Hawk, and we'll have that around 11:30. The community's invited, everyone's invited, and so bring your family and friends to this beautiful, quiet, peaceful healing garden. It's at 401 West University, the old library, and recently the Park and Recreation Office. The Labyrinth idea focuses on restoring calm and peace. We invite you to join us on June 14th at 10:30 as we dedicate this space and 2 very special people. More information will be in the paper next week, according to Mark, and on Siloam Springs Rotary and Facebook page. So thank you very much.
Arthur?
See if any other ladies want to go first.
I don't see any standing up, so.
All right, no other ladies. Anyway, Arthur Holbert, 20705 Highway 16. Madam Mayor, City Board, great to be here. Mary, great report, 101 years. That's 6 years older than the Siloam Springs Chamber of Commerce, so that's impressive, been around for a long time. Hey, just want to let everyone know the Chamber of Commerce will be putting on a Smart Start Business Plan competition. It's our third year, giving away $5,000. Deadline for submittal will be June the 25th, which is my birthday, if anyone's keeping track of that. And we'll pass out the money on Friday of that week, so it'll be the 27th. So basically, that can be a new business, an idea of a business. A business has been around 50 years, but it's for small businesses, or the ideas. So they're our third year. We're giving away $2,500 for first, $1,500 for second. Third place is $1,000. And then we're also doing something. We'll be hosting Apex Accelerator. It's part of the U.S. Department of Defense inside the Siloam Springs Chamber of Commerce. We're doing that quarterly now. It's really a pretty big deal. So they will come, any business, small, medium, large, that's interested in, they'll actually help set them up with federal and state grants and contracts. I shouldn't say the word grants. Those are kind of limited. But state and federal contracts. Big deal. Arkansas is becoming, with the Department of Defense, F-35s, Fort Smith. They're doing contracts with everyone from people that have bakeries to people that do construction, to people that have almost any business product. They're trying to use Arkansas small, medium, large businesses to get federal contracts. So quarterly, so that would be on June the 12th, which is next week. So June the 12th, next week, Accelerated Apex, U.S. Department of Defense will be inside the chamber to help anyone out. This Friday will be First Friday Coffee at Jordan Smith and State Farm. You guys know that's always a lot of fun. Around 7:30, usually average about 135 businessmen and women there. And then we have our monthly prayer meeting this coming Saturday. So other than that, it's great to be in great day to be in Siloam Springs.
Thank you, Arthur. Is there anyone else? Nope.
Hello, Mark Miller, 22587 Westwood Drive, Siloam Springs, Arkansas. I was originally going to come up here and talk and complain, but thanks to some work by the community, I think we've got our issue worked out. I just wanted to publicly thank the police department, the dispatchers, and the community development director and his staff in zoning. Hopefully we've got it worked out. We've got our fingers crossed, and we look forward to working some more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor, Board, Mike and Diana Horton, 23063 Lawless Road, Siloam Springs. We moved here in '77, pastored a church here locally for 41 years. And in that time, I have noticed that usually when someone gets flowers, it's after they're already dead. And we would like to make a statement and change that tonight. In honor of a lady that has stepped up and put some stability in our community and in our city government, we would like to offer Christina these flowers in recognition and appreciation for the job she's done in a very difficult time.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that opportunity to do this.
I don't know her, I've never talked to her, but I wanted her to know.
Thank you for caring for our city. Thank you.
She's not dead.
And we echo those sentiments, Christina. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Rebecca Wyatt, 1109 East Jewel Street. Madam Mayor and Board of Directors, I wanted to update everyone about the June 9th roundtable meeting that is going to be to discuss the Unified Development Code. I spoke with Chris Paxton before the meeting, and it is currently not going to be held in this room, and it is currently not going to be live streamed for the public. It will be recorded and put on the website later. It is currently being held at the Community Development Building, just north of this building at 410 North Broadway on Monday, June 9th from 2:30 to 5. And I've been having some I'm not real clear with my particulars, and so I was trying to find out, could this be a true town hall meeting where people come, they get to ask on this topic, the Planning Commission, and questions and get answers, and then where it was live streamed. But Chris told me before this meeting that by law, they only have to live stream a meeting if there are 2 board members. And at this time, only Mayor Judy has been slated to reside at this meeting. So I wanted to ask if, and also, sorry, I'm jumping around here, also the people that have been invited are only the ones that commented on their UDC post. And so a lot of people didn't know that they had to comment on that in order to get invited to be a stakeholder at this board meeting. Now, I could be wrong about this, so I'll let them clarify this if I'm wrong. So I wanted to ask if it would be possible to have another board member slated for this meeting so it could be live streamed. It would be really nice to have these kinds of meetings live streamed. And I'll finish the rest of this. This meeting, if you want to get an invite, just send an RSVP to the planning@siloamsprings.com email. I encourage as many of the public who can to email the planning department and let them know you plan to be present so they know how many people will be coming. And if there's enough, we could have it in a bigger room. This will affect so many areas of life in Siloam Springs and help determine what type of city we become. I'm hoping that in the future, matters that have a major impact, like this does, for the city of Siloam Springs residents will be allowed at least one true town hall style meeting to allow the attending public to ask questions and have input. Live streaming such a meeting will give those who could not attend a chance to watch and see the staff's and stakeholders' interaction so they can understand the issues better. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Board of Directors.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is there anyone else? If not, I will ask if there is anyone here that would like to speak on an item that is on our consent agenda tonight. There is not, so we will move into our consent agenda. Item A, regular meeting minutes, May 20, 2025. Item B, workshop minutes, Unified Development Code, May 20, 2025. Item C, reallocation of budgeted funds, golf course, $50,000. Directors, is there an item that you would like to have removed for separate consideration? There is not. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Burns,
Yes.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next, we will move to our staff reports. Christina, March financials.
The financial data for March is included in the agenda packet, and if you have any questions or concerns about those specific financials, you're welcome to question me or Kim Williams in the Finance Department.
Thank you, Christina. Directors, do you have any questions at this time? If not, we will move on then to our contracts and approvals. First is the contract utilities, 1898 and Company, for a rate study, $153,400. Jason?
Good morning, Madam Mayor, Board. Jason Davis, Community Services Director. This was a budgeted item through the Electric Department. Kevin Moore, myself, and several others did the grading, and we have chosen 1898 and Company. And I'm open for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Jason? Comments or questions, directors?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David?
I realize staff inherited this from Kevin Moore, who initiated the research for a company. But it would have been nice for our board to have gotten some heads up that this was going to be looked at. The comment that this was, must be done this year. The approval of the last one was November of 2020. So it was not done until 2021. The rate study was presented to our board on September, the first September meeting of 2021, I believe. The date on it was August 8th. And it was voted on the November 3rd meeting of 2020. The reason I go and do my research to find these things out is because I wanted to know how much it cost back then. It was $120,000, $120,500. So this one is quite a bit higher at $153,000. And then I am just a little betwixt and between on hiring this same company that did it last time. When it was first presented to us in a workshop, I think we were a little bowled over by how little had been done to actually discuss with the other cities that were interviewed. They didn't interview. They looked their rates up online. And we were a little shocked at how few cities that they had actually checked on. And only upon the board's request did they go back and do more cities. And again, there was no discussion. It was just looking up all the rates online. And the question that came up at the time was, why do we have to have a company charge the citizens $100 and something thousand when we could do something in-house? We could hire somebody temporarily for 6 months to do what 1898 did. The other problem I have is that this city has given this company, Burns McDonnell, the owner of 1898 and 1898 as a subsidiary, far, far too much business, whether it be for this department or another department or another department. It's almost as if this company, yes, we can do an RFQ, but they automatically, at least in the past, seem to get the contract. I know in some situations from years ago, there wasn't RFQ. It was just handled by staff that are no longer even here. One example was the simple change order in February of 2021 for $500,000 on the water project. I believe that we should table this project until we have more information. I would like to see the other proposals, but by not having any of that put before us, it's a little hard to compare anything other than this contract to the report. I mean, anybody can go find the report that we got last time. It's right here, dated August 2021, and sure enough, the final report showed that Siloam was very, very high compared to other cities. We were near the top on our electric. So I don't think that there is a necessary priority to push this through tonight, especially in that we are not even close to the 5-year requirement. The other thing I'd like to know is what is the actual state law that says this is required? That a rate study must be performed by every city. Is it possible to do an in-house rate study? I find it hard to believe that the state would require every city in the state to go hire an expensive consulting firm. And yes, Burns & McDonnell does a lot of engineering, but they have a lot of other divisions, and 1898 is a consultant. They've done a lot of stuff for the city. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, David. Christina, did you have anything on?
I will locate the specific law and forward that to the board.
Thank you.
I believe it is only for the water that it is required to be done. And I believe that if we, well, I'll just send you the law and then you guys can look at it.
Good, thank you. Jason, anything else?
No, the only thing I could say is I wasn't familiar with 1898, and when we were handed the packets to grade, I graded off of what I seen in the packets, but I was unfamiliar with 1898 until this study came abroad, so.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brad.
So I have concerns too. My concern is Phil Stokes has gotten up here and spoke on numerous occasions prior to me being on the board and since I've been on the board. And I was here at the 20 and 21 when we went through that rate study.
Yes, sir.
And I understand the frustration of Director Allen and his concerns. I totally get it. My concern is that we're coming up to a budget cycle, and we have to have a rate study to make a decision, or we're going to be carrying a significant load out of our next budget.
Yes, sir.
And the good Lord above knows we've got some issues right now.
Yes, sir.
With infrastructure numbers that we'll discuss later this evening. So I just look in the corridor. Bentonville's looking at a 5%. We haven't done incremental raises. I just, whatever the boards decide, we have to come back, and it's going to be sensitive for some people in the community, and we're going to get some lashback,
Yes, sir.
some feedback, and it's going to be negative.
Yes, sir.
And if staff wants to throw it completely on me, use my name.
Yes, sir.
I'll be the bad guy for you.
Okay.
But we are going to have to address this rate going into the next budget cycle.
I agree.
And so however we choose to do it, gathering more information, whatever that is, and
Yes, sir.
tabling it, I don't have a problem, but we are going to have to bring that up just here in the next couple of meetings.
Yes, sir.
It has to be addressed. Thank you.
Brad, anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David.
I completely agree with Director Burns. We need to have rate increases. I've not been against rate increases since Alan Gilbert brought it up a year or two ago. The Utility Commission was set up to investigate rate increases and rates in general for all of our utilities, and got off to a slow start. I don't think they were completely given all the information that they needed to truly understand their function. But I realize we have to raise rates. We've already raised sanitation rates last year. But the reason this report from 2021 showed us at the very top of all the other cities was because we had an automatic annual rate increase plus 1% added to the inflation rate. And it was for every utility we have. And so that was what ended, but we said at the time, if we didn't end it, it was going to do it again through 2026. So here we are, and we need to advance a rate increase for what we have to. We cannot not run the city like a business. We have to. And I think people understand that, and they get it. But what you can't do is what was being done year after year after year, and that was just to stick it to the ratepayer, the taxpayer, the citizens of we can charge you higher, so we're going to. So that's why the automatic annual rate increases were killed, and I hope they never come back. And we need to do a full evaluation of what company we need to hire to do this. Because frankly, I did not believe 1898 did us a very good job for $120,000. That's why I said, Jason, several of the people on the committee hadn't been here back then.
Right.
I mean, you guys, this is your first experience with this company. But if I'm not mistaken, their parent company was also involved in not just engineering, but also consulting on some other things. And it's one of those things that we've spent millions with this company, and I sit here and say, if they're not doing a good job and they don't give you a report that really went out and investigated, and it was something that anybody with any knowledge of the internet could have done, then why are we paying this kind of money? That's my biggest qualm about it, and it was brought up in 21.
Yes, sir. I would think I would agree with Christina that we would look back and see what we have to legally do and let you guys know on that.
But this board needs to decide, and I've told people, I've told people at the end of last year, I told people at the first of this year, we're going to see a rate increase soon, so don't be thinking it's not coming.
Yes,
Because
sir.
it's gonna happen.
Thank you, David. Anyone else? Yes, Lisa.
We've discussed in the past about supporting each other when we needed something tabled. And I agree with David, and I agree with a lot of Director Allen's and Director Burns' comments. And so I agree with the tabling and getting more information.
Absolutely. That's no problem.
And I don't have an issue with the tabling either. My understanding of this from 5 years ago is that it is that the state requires us to do the water study. And that because they're requiring the water study, we thought we might as well do the other studies at the same
Correct.
time. So,
Yes.
But yes, you can confirm that with the information you give us. So I don't mind tabling if we feel like we need to do that, but I would agree that we don't want to push it too far down the road because we are looking at.
As long as Christina's okay
Yeah.
with it, we can present.
You're ready
next-
now, I get it.
Yes,
You are
ma'am.
ready now, and it may take you a little bit of time, but we
Yes,
probably are going to need to make a decision before too long, before budget time.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
And I feel like I can bring this back to you guys by the next meeting if that's what you would like. Okay?
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, David.
Mindy, what you brought up, I remember us being told in 2021 that it was state law to do a rate study. I never heard water
No,
until tonight. That's the first I've heard is that it
I
was
remember
specific
it was just
one.
water specifically,
Really?
but we went ahead and
Yeah.
added the.
I just remember being told a rate study was required, and I thought that meant on everything.
I can tell you for sure, Director
it's just-
Allen, that sanitation is not required.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think anything but water was required, but we were doing
I
the
would like to
study,
see
so-
I would like to see the law to see if there's any specifications on, can you have internal employees do it? Can you hire a temporary professional to do it? Or is it required to hire a big company?
Yes, sir. We can get those answers for you.
All right.
Thank you.
Madam
I'll
Mayor.
make a motion to table. Oh,
I think
did somebody
we have
else?
another
Sorry.
comment. Lisa?
I just want to say, I've asked in the past, and I don't know. I would like when we get these, if there's state statutes that are referenced, that we get that state statute.
Yes, ma'am.
I know I keep asking for those, and I'm going to keep asking for them
Yes, ma'am.
because it saves a lot of time and a lot of research on our part.
Absolutely.
And I don't mind calling down to the state, but it's easier if we can just get that information.
ma'am.
And we have the books, so
Will do.
we should be able to use them.
Yes, ma'am.
So we can get that in the future.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Then I believe, David, you had a motion
Motion to table.
until the June 17th meeting. Is that correct? That'll be our next regular meeting.
I guess so.
So move, or second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to table until the June 17th regular meeting. Roll call.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Bristler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you, Jason.
Okay.
Next is the grant acceptance for Twin Springs Park Public Services, Parks and Recreation Project for Public Spaces, $80,000. Jason again.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor, board members. We have a slide. I'm not sure if it's up or not. I believe you guys got a slide packet with you, so I can go over that with you. If you look in the first slide, in 2024, the City of Siloam Springs was awarded $80,000 through the placemaking grant from the Project for Public Spaces. The Project for Public Spaces, international nonprofit organization that works with communities to create and transform public spaces. If you'll look over under slide 2, the grant was awarded with the expectation that grant funds would be used for a project in historic Twin Springs Park. The exact nature of the scope of the project was to be determined through the placemaking process. The project is 100% grant funded, no match is required. On your slide 3, since October 2024, city staff, Parks Advisory Board members, and community members have been meeting to develop designs. Everyone who participated in the design wanted to see historic Twin Springs restored. However, the cost to perform the work that was actually Springs Basin was well outside the budget of this particular grant. So the committee quickly pivoted to focus to improve that would activate the area above the spring and the Twin Springs gazebo. On slide 4, prior to the construction of the amphitheater, the Twin Springs gazebo was the location for outdoor events and performances. The amphitheater is a great venue for large groups, but it can feel empty at times when you get 300+ people in attendance. We continue to need a space that is appropriate for the smaller events, 20 to 300. These are the majority of our events, library story hour in the summer, weddings, family gatherings, and so on. The around area of Twin Springs includes the gazebo for our idea for these sorts of community events. If you look at your slide 5, some of you may remember the Bill and Deanna Lisk hosted the second Saturday music series for many years. When the Lisks host the second Saturday music, they'd bring in their own homemade stage extensions so they'd be able to get performers to get up there. On slide 6, the Park Advisory Board, a 9-person citizen board, reviewed the potential projects and were unanimous in their recommendations that the highest priority would be to make the gazebo more functional by expanding the deck in the front and adding an ADA accessible ramp. We would also add movable tables and chairs so the folks can sit, eat, and view Sager Creek from an elevated vantage point. On slide 7, additionally, this project would add additional tables, chairs, and benches on the landing above the spring, making this entire area a more attractive gathering place. And on slides 8 through 11, you can see that this project for public spaces was created, some renderings of what the improvements will look like when completed, run through with those slides. On the last slide, slide 12, is a project for public spaces. It's almost ready to release the funds so that staff can begin purchasing furniture and working contractors to make improvements. We're asking the board to accept this grant funds and amend the budget to reflect those expenses. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
So, Jason, is this front-loaded by the city? Do we spend our money first and then get reimbursed? That's the way a contract reads.
Yes, I believe that's the way that it's set up.
It also has a first report date of March 31st. Has that been allowed by the company to be pushed back, or?
I believe so. I believe that's what Travis was telling me.
The final report is October 31st. But that March 31st date jumped out at me as to, I hope that does not create a problem.
I don't believe so. When I spoke with Travis, he didn't seem to think that was an issue.
Well,
And I
I just want to
apologize,
make
Travis
sure
is out.
because there's an awful lot of paragraphs on how PPS can terminate this contract. And by missing dates, that's one of them. So I just want to make sure of that.
Yes, sir.
The other point I wanted to make is that in the pictures, and in the memo from Travis, it is referred to as Historic Twin Springs Park, Historic Twin Springs Gazebo, et cetera, et cetera. And yet, in our later address of naming Memorial Park, it includes this entire area as Memorial Park.
Yes, sir.
The entire reason this was called Twin Springs Park 100 years ago was because of this place right here where the Twin Springs empty into the creek.
Yes, sir.
And when I was a kid, you could go down there, and I didn't do it, but some people drank the water. Some people would take jugs and fill up the jugs with the water, which there wasn't an EPA. It was the Arkansas EPA that said, you can't do that. So we put up signs, and eventually they put up stairs being blocked, which I absolutely hate. It's sat like this for 20 years, overgrown with sawhorses at one time, and now permanent blockages to the stairwell. But it got dangerous, and I understand it. I just hate that what is being proposed won't allow any of the water to flow now at all. And that was part of the whole point of that being called Twin Springs. I like what has been proposed. It's beautiful. I went down last summer to this gazebo. Nobody was around. I was shocked at the amount of horrible graffiti. Really obscene stuff that's been, some of it just pencils, but a lot of it with black Sharpie. And I was surprised that our city allows that to remain. It should not. I mean, when stuff like that pops up, we need to cover it up as soon as possible.
Totally agree.
But I just had questions because of, well, at the bottom of this memo, it says amend the budget to reflect the expenses. And then after seeing that we don't receive the money until after quite a bit has already been spent, I realized it's front-loaded.
Yes, sir.
And I just wanted to make sure that we all accepted that and knew that. It looks like the contract was signed by Alan Gilbert on October 2nd, which actually should have been signed by the mayor, I believe. But that's things that we've learned about lately anyway.
Yes, sir.
I would hope when the final tally is done and everything's finished and everybody's signed off on it being done according to the proposal, that the board is invited and we're aware of it, that where we can attend the unveiling.
Absolutely.
As it's talked about, the last paragraph, the unveiling.
Yes, sir.
Because sometimes things like this, I mean, some people knew about it, but not everybody knew about it. And sometimes these things happen and the board doesn't get any notification of the final thing. So
No,
I think this is a big thing.
I do
and,
too.
It's something, it's almost like a first step to what Brad has been working on for years and years, is the cleanup of Sager Creek.
Yes, sir.
And this is not the creek, but it's part of the creek in a way. And so it's almost like a first step. I mean, we've already taken the first step with, the analysis and,
Yes, sir.
but this is part of it, in my opinion. This
Yes,
is
sir.
part of it. And so I know people can argue and say, what, how much are you wanting to spend to fix Sager Creek? I've said it before, Sager Creek is the heart of Siloam Springs, and we have to spend what we have to spend. to get it up to snuff and fix it and get the fountains up to, and he has far more knowledge of what needs to be done than anybody. And we were lucky to get him on the committee years ago. And so we need to continue down this path, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, David. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Lisa.
I have a couple questions. For the amount that's covered, do you know down where you walk down where the springs used to be that he was talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
The infrastructure in that area, especially when you first get to the bottom of the steps, does that cover repairing that infrastructure? Because I thought that was a safety concern. So how are you able to put this in place and it not be a safety concern?
The way I understood it, that was something that Travis had talked with the engineers about, and they didn't see an issue with it.
They didn't see
They
an
didn't
issue?
see an issue.
That's the way I understood it. Yes, sir.
Have you,
Oh, I've been down there plenty. We actually had a meeting down there last week to discuss the repairs and how to clean up the creek. That was actually something that we sat down and talked about as well. So yeah, I'm fully aware it
well, if
needs
it's
some help.
not a concern, then why do we have it blocked off now?
Oh, I'm concerned about it. The amount of money was very, very high when Travis had that quoted
To
to
get that fixed, because
Yes.
it is crumbling.
Yes.
I went
When
down.
you get a chance, I can answer.
I was going to
Well,
say,
good. No, go ahead, Brad. I'm
Brad
glad for an
knows.
answer.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
right,
And I'm not
she-
going to ramble because I could go on for a spell. But to make it short and sweet, Stanley Church is passionate. Stanley's coming back up. He's passionate about that spring area, like many people that have been here for many, many moons. What you're seeing down there is a rendering, because for all clarity, I was on this committee, did several Zoom meetings with them. I brought this concern up. And so this rendering that you see is let's call it, we're planting a seed in hopes that the board will look at the quality of life and look at our investment, not only in the community building, but in Sager Creek, to include Healing Springs to bring it up to this standard. So the drawing that you see there, an example of that can happen after the spring is brought up and meet those safety codes. So having been on the Zoom meeting, I know you weren't on that because it was an iffy, there's a lot of, the Zoom was a little difficult recently. And so the significance of this will be the gazebo, ADA compliant, be able to meet everything, and some sitting areas around there. But
Not
as far
that
as
area
that
down
in there, that's really gonna be, for us, we're planting a seed, and I'll be honest with you, I'm the cornerstone behind that seed planting. Because I believe that, and Reed spoke of this before, is that we have some significant projects coming up, but we do have to invest in Siloam, and what is that balance? And so that's part of that balance. But for that to get to that level, will require the board to look into Sager Creek and to follow perhaps some of the Sager Creek Advisory Committee recommendations. And so, yes,
Okay,
that will
looking at
still
the
be blocked
picture-
off, developed around it, but that's the eventual goal, is for it to be that. So if you see the bigger picture in 26 or 27, it would be something similar to that. And to go on what Director Allen had said is about the spring. So if you remember back when we did the Chautauqua Amphitheater, we struggled with the name Chautauqua. I don't know if I say it right. And Director Beers ribbed me pretty hard on it. But it is there, it is our history. But the water trommel that comes down is from the splash pad. And so originally we couldn't afford it. But the water would come down seasonally, and then we had a pump that would resend it up. And it was originally gonna go into the Healing Springs, so you would actually have a spring. Even though it was a man-made spring, it replicated that. And so now the water drains out to where you see the plants at, and we have a trap there, and it trickles out, so it really doesn't feed. So there's some vision there that's a little bit more economical, that we might be able to replicate a stream just coming out of Sager and where it comes through seasonally, and that's for another point.
But Brad, this little depression that you're talking about, that's not part of.
No, it's
this
everything
project.
above it.
Okay.
But that's the big.
See, I thought it
reason.
was because it
Yeah,
looks
it's
kind of like
misleading.
it's filled with gravel.
It's misleading.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's what I want to make
Yeah.
clear.
No, I'm
And
glad
I like
you
your
educated
idea of the springs.
Yeah, nobody can
but I
go
wanna
there
make it
till the safety standard
very
is
clear.
up to par.
And
You can see
One
it
at a
right
time
here. It's a mess.
David, hang
Sorry,
on.
I'm sorry.
So Lisa?
yeah, that's what I wanted to make clear. It's because if you look at this, I'm under the assumption, and anybody from the public would think that that was going to be covered. I do like the idea from the springs. There's many times, a couple of us board members, I don't know if it's against the law, but we go down there and clean that out because it says not to go, but we go down there because there's trash always in there. And so I would like to see something done with it, but this picture made me assume that something was going to be done with it. And so,
So I think what I'm hearing then is this is kind of the first step of a bigger project, right? Okay, so,
But until Brad explained it, I thought that
in it.
depression area was part of this.
Yeah.
So
but now we have that.
now we are educated.
Okay.
We appreciate it.
I thought we was getting some pretty good stuff for $80,000.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm like, wow,
What about it?
I want to know who
Getting a
these
good deal.
people are that's doing it.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Reed.
looking forward, Jason.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? If not, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this grant acceptance?
Hello, Katie Renard, 702 East Delaware, Siloam Springs, Arkansas. I didn't expect to speak to this, but in the 60s, when I was running up and down the streets of Siloam, if our friends fell into Sager Creek, we just left them. That's how bad it was. But I have been saddened to see that we can no longer use that. My question, though, really, I want to support anything that will help us bring that up. That Twin Springs gazebo actually burned many years ago. It's in really old pictures of Siloam Springs that the museum has. And the Kiwanis Club helped rebuild it, but we have not maintained it. It hadn't been our goal that we would always take care of it, and maybe that's something we should have done, so we could have painted over it or whatever. But with no idea what this looks like, and I didn't see it in the online information either, I wanted to just ask the question, will the gazebo just be maintained, updated, and remain a center point of Twin Springs Park?
That is my understanding, that
Okay.
it will continue. It'll just be a much better version.
Okay, and I would say that my dream would always be, before I go on to that great park in the sky, that we would see that restored down there where it's all roped off.
I believe that is in the vision.
So the
Katie.
decking basically is a big part of this,
Katie.
right? Yeah.
If you want to, okay, Brad's going to share his.
Is there anyone else in the audience?
With that big of a deck, it will be a nice place for
It absolutely will be.
concerts, small concerts.
Going to make a big difference. And we've had people for a long time wanting that to become a place that they can use and go to, so this will be great. All right, if there is nothing else, then do I have a motion to accept the grant for the Twin Springs Park?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you very much, Jason. With that, we will move into our ordinances. Ordinance 25-16, second reading, amending section 02-10 of the City Municipal Code, establishing a city public services department. Christina?
So this is to clean up the ordinance and move the departments back where they need to be, and also rename the Public Services Department to Community Services Department for clarification.
Very good, thank you. Directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Brad?
so apparently I'm the only one that likes flow charts. And we've dropped the ball again. I have a copy of that flow chart, but I don't see it out and about in the packet.
If the ordinance is approved, then we'll,
Thank you. That would be beautiful. And the reason I ask that is when somebody asks me a question of what are the changes going on in Siloam, and we have many, I don't mind speaking with them, but I would prefer to refer them to a piece of material, and then I can explain how the flow chart works instead of wasting, I don't want to call it wasting my time, but we have some changes, and I just think it needs to be available. It needs to be out there so that we have a few naysayers that they completely understand with 100% clarity what is occurring in Siloam. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Anyone else? If not, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 25-16? There is not. Directors, do I have a motion to place ordinance 25-16 on its second reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Whistler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes. Motion is approved. Christina?
Ordinance number 25-16, an ordinance amending section 02-10 of the City Municipal Code, amending a city community services department.
Thank you, ma'am. Next is ordinance 25-17, second reading, vacation of a utility easement, 3017 North Hico Street. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant requests to vacate the unused utility easements on Lot 3 of the Clifford subdivision. Staff hasn't received any additional comments on this from the previous reading, and if there's any additional questions, I stand to answer those.
Thank you. Directors, comments or questions for Chris? There is none. Anyone in the audience that would like to speak to ordinance 25-17? There is not. So, directors, do I have a motion to place ordinance 25-17 on its second reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Christina?
Ordinance number 25-17, an ordinance vacating and abandoning utility easements at 3017 North Hico Street.
Thank you, ma'am. Next is ordinance 25-18, first reading, amending section 102-21 of the City Municipal Code, rezoning from A1 to R3, the 400 block of Meadow Court. Ben?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board, Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. So before you is a rezoning request. This is at the 400 block of Meadow Court. The proposal is to zone the property to R3, residential two-family. If this sort of looks familiar to you, it's because it has been looked back to the board a few months back for an R4 designation. The applicant has turned it out around and requesting R3, which is the lower zone below R4. This is for 2.1 acres. That will allow for a duplex. I did just say that about that was a resubmittal of the previous review that was looked at the board and was denied at the March meeting. Here you see some of the pictures on the left of the property. Again, this is going to R3. That's for a duplex. So what that will mean is only one duplex for the entire property. So there's not multiple duplexes or anything, just one for the entire property. The site is currently an open field, as you can see on the left. Existing single-family homes on both sides. The applicant's intent, we believe, is to come back later with a preliminary plat or some type of subdivision process to potentially split this property into smaller lots, but they wouldn't need to rezone because the R3 applies for the entire property. So they would just be splitting it to potentially allow for additional units. But we don't have an application for that at this time. We just know that that's their intent. Access to this site is exclusively through the multifamily apartment complex. You can't get to it any other way, only through that part. And the future land use map will need to be amended to allow for the two-family use. This did go to the Planning Commission, and they are recommending approval with the map amendment. And we are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David?
Ben, is this, I noticed the name, is this the same person who brought it to us where we voted it down?
Yes.
It is?
Yeah.
I may be thinking of someone else that we voted down.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mindy?
I think I asked this before when it was going to be more like townhome styles, but I would think financially, they probably would want to come back and do some sort of lot split. So just like you said, in 2 acres, approximately how many duplexes could there be?
That's
How many
a
splits could you do?
interesting question. It really depends on a lot of factors. There's drainage, parking. You have to account for the driveway or street, topography issues. So it's really hard to say. I mean, I would hazard a guess, at least 2 or 3 additional lots in there. But really, it just depends on the design. That's why we have our engineers to look at all these things and come up with a design that we'd look at and determine if it meets city code or not.
And of course, we've still got that hill to contend with.
Yes. Yeah.
So there would be possibly some drainage things to work out, so, okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brad?
So I don't like to go against the planning, but isn't this just, aren't we back to where we were before? For R3, we're splitting it back up. I think we've looked at 2 renderings from townhomes to duplexes. And so we're going to approve an R3, and we come in and split it, and we could be back to the original where we were before, where we denied it. I mean, am I the only one that sees that?
It won't, Madam Mayor, if I may respond to that. It won't be precisely the same because the R4 allows for such a higher density in and of itself. There will be additional units in there, but it wouldn't be the same as if they maxed out the entire lot as R4. So, it is definitely a lesser density than the previous proposal.
Then are we, because all we're doing is rezoning now, but when we rezone it and he brings back, can they go up again? If remember, the neighbors were complaining about lights, that sort of thing.
It's very hard to say because we don't have any building permits right now as to what they would look like. I mean, there's a possibility they could be 2-story units or single-story units. It just depends on what they get with their building permit. But we will certainly do what we can to mitigate any impacts on the neighbors.
And I think I had a question the last time was about, can this not qualify for a PD?
We looked at that and we determined that there really wasn't they didn't meet the qualifications. We looked at that immediately with the applicant right afterwards, and there were just a lot of different steps, that are required with that, and it just wasn't really the best site for that. And Chris, did you want to add anything more on that? Okay.
Well, I get the denial on it because that's what you folks do and you're educated on it, but in this particular piece, it would answer a lot of questions on the future site development and put the neighbor, the 2 folks that showed up at ease. This site is going to pass, this site is going to be developed, and this board may not, but in the future, we will be addressing access to this property. So I'm on record now, and I feel so much better. I'll sleep tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
That
Lisa.
was one of my questions. Is this land landlocked?
It doesn't have access to the street like on, you have to go through the Meadow Court
That's
apartments.
the only way? There's
Yeah.
no other street access?
No, I mean, there's a vacant lot on the back end of it on the east side, but there's no, access easement or anything. I mean, there conceivably could be a street built
That lot.
along the far eastern boundary, but there's not presently any type of access there.
Does the same owner own that land?
No, it's a different owner.
And so the fire trucks and everything this will meet their needs?
I believe so. I mean, they're already servicing if you see the bottom pictures there's these multifamily units are literally like right there. So they're
Don't they have to
already
be able to
servicing.
turn around isn't there a turnaround requirement?
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, Chris Paxton, the Director of Administrative Services. I did want to point out that if this does come back and get split back up, it goes through that preliminary plat process. It would go through our tech review committee, and that does include the fire marshal's office. So it would go through additional reviews to ensure that the preliminary plat itself meets those requirements. The lot to the east that Ben was talking about, I believe it's an A1. Excuse me, A1, we would consider that future redevelopable area. So there is that possibility that there could be additional connection from the east. However, whenever the preliminary plat goes through, it does have to meet those development requirements and meet the fire standards. The fire chief wasn't able to be here because of weather operations tonight, but I believe that he would probably support those same statements.
Anyone else? David?
Mayor. Ben, so you're saying this would be for only one duplex on the entire piece of property?
At this time, yes.
Yeah.
At this time.
Okay. But it could be a two-story duplex.
It could be, yes.
It's not like it's going to be like what we first saw, which was including buildings to the north, which would have been putting light into that back, to that property, the homes to the north is what I'm saying. So if this was just a one duplex, even if it was two-story, it would be a little hard, I think, to have light even reaching that far.
Yeah, I mean, and I said this earlier, there's a very big jump between R3 and R4. You don't think there would be because it's just one number higher, but it really creates such a different land use because you're really talking about the multifamily use, which is typically.
R3 is two-family per building.
Right. One building with just two units in it, like a duplex. So, this is really shaving back that density because we're just doing just the R3 at this point.
But what you guys are saying is even though that's the proposal, they could come back and add another duplex or something. But right
Potentially,
now it's one.
Correct, yeah.
Anyone else? If not, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 25-18? If there is not, directors, do I have a motion to place ordinance 25-18 on its first reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
No.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Bristler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Christina?
Ordinance number 25-18, an ordinance amending section 102-21 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code, City Zoning Map, rezoning from A1 to R3, property located at the 400 block of Meadow Court, and amending the future land use map of Siloam Springs 2040 Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you, ma'am. Next is ordinance 25-19, first reading, naming of Siloam Springs Memorial Park. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor. And I did just want to, just really quickly on that last item, the applicant had reached out to staff just right before this meeting. And during the next meeting, he will be requesting that to go to the second and third reading.
25-18 that you're referring to.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Madam Mayor, this is an item that is ordinance 2519, the naming of the Siloam Springs Memorial Park. This ordinance would also establish the name boundaries, parking areas, and facilities to the Siloam Springs Memorial Park and set the hours of operation. So the description of this item, there's 6 parking areas that shall be considered a part of the reserve a part of and reserved for Siloam Springs Memorial Park. Those are labeled A through F on the exhibit provided. Siloam Springs Memorial Park hours shall be closed to the public, including all parking areas reserved for the park from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. The signage shall be placed reflecting park hours, including posting at the parking areas, and park hours may be adjusted by the city administrator as needed for holidays, events, maintenance, or other purposes as needed on a case-by-case basis. And it's my understanding that there was some discussion that was relative to the north portion of this, and if staff does need to make changes to that, then I would recommend a discussion of that and then to table the item so we can bring it to the first reading at the next meeting.
Thank you, sir. Directors?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mindy?
I think you just mentioned this, was the question about renaming the Twin Springs Park section to Memorial Park?
Yes, that some of the conversations that I've heard from people are the confusion of where this park would end versus where Twin Springs would begin, and I think that that's probably a little confusing anytime you have two parks that kind of come close to each other.
So your picture now has it
all the way to the
renamed,
south bank of the creek. That's correct.
all the way to this, okay, so the north bank of the creek would still be Twin Springs?
On the north side of the creek would remain unchanged. This would be the blue area. I don't know if you can see. So this dark black boundary identifies the boundary of where the park boundary would be located. So if you trace that all the way around, it reaches over here and grabs this parking lot, follows that, and then goes back up. This area that I'm kind of showing in this general area is, I think some of the questions and concerns were whether or not this would be a part of Siloam Springs Memorial Park, or if this would be considered a part of Twin Springs Park. So other than that, I didn't have any additional input from.
And my understanding is that sort of the motivator here is to name it all a park so that we can have more regulations surrounding it.
That is correct.
Whether it be Twin Springs or Memorial.
One of the issues primarily, you'll notice that there's an emphasis on the parking areas. Those parking areas currently are dedicated as public parking. And the chief of police can probably talk a little bit about this, but just as a quick overview, the parking areas as a public parking area cannot be closed, so it allows people to utilize that at 24/7. However, if it's dedicated to be reserved for the use of the Siloam Springs Memorial Park, then those can be subject to the park hours.
I don't have a strong preference, but there may be other board members that do on where the boundary is.
Yes, Lisa?
This just raises a question with me. So if we're defining the parking lots as the part of the park, is our downtown, is that public parking or is that park parking?
Anything that's in the public right-of-way,
So, you know, in Twin Springs, you have those parking,
and I believe that those are a part of the public right-of-way, don't quote me on that.
so that's public parking.
If it's in the right-of-way,
clarity.
it has to remain a public parking. We'd have to close the right-of-way to change that, to dedicate it to a park use.
So what's happening in the parking lot C here can just be moved down to,
I'm sorry, can you state that again?
so what's happening in parking lot C right there
Mm-hmm.
could just be moved down to the Twin Springs parking area.
Oh, the issues that we're having.
That is
there might
correct.
just be-
There
I didn't
are,
want to call them issues, I was trying to be kind.
there are other ways of, whenever you have public parking in a public right-of-way, the board could theoretically identify hours, limitations on those parkings, but that would be through a separate item. You can, for example, limit hours of usage. You can limit, it's typically in a public right-of-way, you would say 2 hour less or 4 hour or less to
Okay,
prevent
because
people
I was
from
wondering why
using it.
that was not included if you were going to do this. Because all it does is invite it just to move right down there. I mean, it's in the same area.
And that, so one of the things that this does is it kind of allows us to address the issues with the parking lots, put up the signage and start in this area. to address that citywide, it becomes a bit of a challenge because a resolution or an ordinance can only address one issue at a time. When if the board does see an issue somewhere else, we can address that through a separate item and bring that back to the
Well,
board.
there's so much parking in this area, and right there beside Dr. Hoffman's, is that a public parking?
Yes. Madam Mayor?
Yeah, I'm done, I'm sorry.
Yes, David.
When this was first proposed and before the amphitheater was built, Don Clark stood right there and said that the Twin Springs Park would go all the way up to the curved sidewalk at the back of the amphitheater, that it would include the gazebo and the Union Soldier Memorial. Because that was a concern for me, that Union Soldier Memorial and gazebo had always been part of Twin Springs Park. And we were assured that that would always be considered Twin Springs Park, and that where the gazebo and amphitheater or not gazebo, but the amphitheater and the seating would be the north side of Memorial Park, that it would begin and end with that curved sidewalk. The curved sidewalk that goes behind the back of the amphitheater. That way the gazebo and the part that we were talking about that's closed off which is the Twin Springs, that is the actual Twin Springs, would remain in Twin Springs Park.
Okay.
Yes, Lisa.
Do we know the history of why we changed it to Memorial? Because it has, he is right, from our childhood, it's always been Twin Springs. Do we know we know the Twin Springs history? What's the history of why we named it to Memorial?
I'm not sure the full history, but we tried to look up some of the information, and it's very limited. So the first time that we could identify that Memorial Park was named was a part of the resolution that came forward with the site development review. So the site development review came forward, and it was a part of the title for the site development review. There was no official naming to Memorial Park that we could find on city record.
We could name it Twin Springs.
You sure could.
We could name that whole thing Twin Springs.
Yes, you could.
I know.
Madam Mayor?
I think,
Okay, yeah, hang on just a second. I think Betsy has input here.
I'm guessing because Siloam Springs Memorial Hospital used to sit right there.
That sounds correct. So.
Yeah.
Well, that was where the library was, is where the Memorial Hospital
right.
was. The seating for the amphitheater is where the old medical center was, and at one time in the development phase, this thing, for some reason, was called Medical Springs Park. One of the most idiotic names I've ever heard, because we never had a Medical Springs in this town. But we have had Healing Springs, we've had the Twin Springs, and I'm just saying, we were told over and over that the Twin Springs Park would go right up to the back of that, and I think we should at least be including that in part of the Twin Springs Park.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I also was just informed that part of that name for the Memorial Park was due to the war memorial that's at that location.
It's at the top of there.
The War Memorial was always in Twin Springs,
That's right.
so that doesn't, that,
Many people think it has to do with Confederate soldiers. It does not. It's Union soldiers.
And I think that the more important thing is that there was no official naming of this, so it's really up to the board to make that determination.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that memorial was put by, I think, the DAR or the Daughters of the American Revolution, and then it also references Union soldiers. So I'm just saying, I was here when we were told by staff that that was going to remain with the gazebo as part of Twin Springs Park.
And
if we could, I think, if we can have Chief just speak to him, and I think maybe he has.
Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the board. So part of my understanding of it was when in 2020 when they built the new war memorial up by the Moss House is when they renamed the park area to Memorial Park. So there's two different war memorials in the vicinity of Memorial Park. But to Director Paxton's comments, we can table this, revamp it to where there's a distinguish between Twin Springs and Memorial Park, or whatever you guys would like them to be named. The whole point of this was to give us some enforcement actions within our park areas, in our public parking lots, so that we don't continue to have the problems that we've been seeing.
Yes, Lisa.
If we table it and bring it back, I would like to know the history, the complete history. Why it was named Twin Springs. I would like to know, why was it named Memorial? Give us the complete history so we have a complete picture to make a decision.
Absolutely. I'll go talk to the right people.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David.
while you're doing that, Chris, if there is some way, possibly Don Warden at the museum would have maps of the original Twin Springs Park boundaries. Yeah, I think Mary was waiting for somebody to say, hey, we've got some experts in
I've been
town.
hearing it behind me.
But you know, I know it would be difficult. I would not want to create a problem for the PD on being, you know, trying to describe on radio where someone is in terms of that curved sidewalk designating between Memorial Park and Twin Springs Park. And if the creek is a better designated break, then so be it. I mean, I'm not hung up on anything. I'm just saying this is what I remember being told. I do believe it is more appropriate if it's called Memorial, that it's regarding that one that's up on the hill that the veterans installed several years ago. And names all of the veterans that passed from Siloam. It's an amazing memorial. Yeah, the other one was different. So, thank you.
So.
But I think it's good to have some research.
Yeah, and input from, because I see some heads shaking. I'd like to know. your
The pros.
opinion. I really would like to know.
Madam Mayor,
So, yes.
I'm biting my tongue over here pretty hard.
Yep.
So having been on this development of this site, and I won't, and part of the post-29 American Legion, which they had their memorial service, they rang the bell and they named all the names that are on the KIA memorial. Having a passion project, which I hope to finish this fall, of cleaning the hillside there that used to be part of our park back in the day. And I did flesh out a person that was living behind the Moss House, which is not part of our property, but, and I understand the problem there. I see it daily. You can go see it right now. I'm sure they're still there. You can see them early in the morning. In fact, when we had the city workshop, you had an issue with a person on the back patio PD took care of. They were addressing while the city had their workshop going on. It was addressed last year with a splash pad with folks hanging around making small children and families uncomfortable. So it's an issue. I would sound off Director Allen is that it would be interesting, and I do remember that conversation, that coming up from Twin Springs Park, you just come up the amphitheater area, take the stairwell, tie into the top sidewalk and take it around. We call it Twin Springs Park. The top stays Memorial Park. It serves the same purpose that PD's looking for, to provide that. So whatever that looks like, we're on the right track. And to include in this one here, on the next slide when you present it, the northern section of the park. So whatever we decide with Twin Springs, we get the whole picture of what Twin Springs Park, what that really looks like. And we're just trying to solve a problem. And but renaming that, and I will say, it was a struggle for me even on our grant, messing with the gazebo. I told people this is sensitive in Siloam, these gazebos and the memorials, because, you know, when folks don't understand the history of Siloam, it's concerning. So I'm about to give you some needless information. At Bell Cemetery on Highway 59 in Oklahoma, there's a gravestone, and it is Tennessee Holland Burns. It's my great-grandmother. They used to come into Siloam Springs and to get water out of that spring to soak their toes and feet in for achy joints. And that's real life. And we lived between Watts and Skelly, Oklahoma. Not me, they did. So there's a lot of history there. And so whatever we decide on that, we're on the right track. And I thank you guys for addressing an issue, because summer's coming on and it's going to amplify itself. So great job.
So I think from the input here, I'm going to ask for a motion to table until our June 17th regular meeting. And at that time, Chris, you will, or before that, you'll provide to the board the history and some recommendations for.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second to table. Roll call.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Motion to table is approved. Next is Resolution 22-25, amending 2025 board rules. And Christina, I believe you have that discussion?
Yes, actually, we had a couple of different board members at the last meeting say that they would like this brought forward. And so it is for the board to discuss and make their determination as to whether or not they would like to pass this as is or with any changes.
And I believe the requested change is just simply to remove that one section, is that correct, that addresses pagers and cell phones? Okay. So with that, directors, any comments or questions?
I won't be able to use my pager anymore?
No, your pager's out. Lisa, did you have anything?
I want to say, a lot of times, I know the public sees us on our phones and stuff, but sometimes, a lot of times, I'm looking up state statute. I'm looking at things. That's how I get the information to you so quickly, is because I'm able to look at my cell phone and get that information. Because I'm here to represent you, and if I can give you the information that quick, I need my cell phone to do that.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
Mayor.
Betsy?
I do the same, and I also, it's how people contact me when they can't hear, or the visual or the audio isn't working correctly. And I'm old. I can't see that one at all because the angle. And yeah, I have to enlarge on my phone, so I use it in lieu of a computer.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, Brad?
I brought it up because I like bringing up awkward conversation. You're welcome in advance. No, I'm joking. I just thought, as I read through things, I just see this as a housekeeping. The pagers need to be stricken, obviously, and as a board, whatever we decide, it's pretty obvious. Cell phones in our life, they're taken away from your kids in their classroom, they're putting it in a basket. I'm not saying we're kids in a classroom, although, sometimes we might act like we're kids in a classroom, but, so whatever that is, I see it as a housekeeping. My phone's off. It started appearing on my last couple of years when I served on Ward 2, where people were texting me with things that needed to be brought to my attention prior to a meeting. So I've taken the option of turning it off. It is simply a housekeeping to keep things up to date. That's how I see it. So however we move as a board, it's just cleaning up old business.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Updating.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mindy?
I agree with what Directors Blair and Rissler said, but I do understand. If we're going to use the phones, then we ought to take out the verbiage that says don't use phones. For whatever reason, we might be using the phones. And I don't know if this is the appropriate time to bring this up or not, but since we are talking about procedural rules and, our written statements, I want to bring up the board packet timing on when we get that. I know that's been an issue. It was requested that we get it earlier. I'm just not sure if I think it's making it harder on staff to get it to us earlier. And it seems like more often than not, even if we do get it early in the week, by Thursday or Friday, there's a changed version of it. So I'm just asking that maybe we reconsider that. I'm one, it's just always been my standard for the last 6 years. I have Sunday afternoons as my time to read my board packet because that's fresh on my mind then, and I have Monday to ask any questions. So I don't take advantage of it coming earlier, others may, but I just wonder if that might be another point of discussion since we're talking about board packet anyway.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
That was definitely a point of contention, but I can assure you, we have actually been getting them a day or more in advance than the minimum requirement. Because we have a different city clerk who prefers to do it that way. And yes, occasionally there is a change because of something, Scrivener's error or something, as this last time, that there was some terminology that wasn't appropriate. But yeah, sometimes there's other things that need to be added, and I take advantage of the extra time, but I haven't heard anybody in staff level that's complained about it. And in fact, for Janae to be able to get it out 2 days before the requirement, I even brought that up to her one time. And she said, no, I prefer to get this out now. I know I don't have to, but I prefer to. And I think that's a pretty sharp staff member wanting to get ahead of the curve.
And Madam Mayor?
Yes.
In response, I have heard that it's just some extra pressure on staff, and that's been from staff members. It's okay with me. Obviously, when I read it, if I don't read it until later, it doesn't matter that I've gotten it earlier. But with the changed versions that we get on a frequent basis, I guess I would just be interested in knowing if it seems to be working well for staff the way it is, or if there's any reason why it might be putting extra pressure.
So, because we haven't discussed this previously and we haven't gotten information maybe from staff, perhaps if we would ask Christina to look into that, visit with staff and get some input from them to get back to you all before our next meeting. So then if we need to make an amendment and you all want that to be brought forward, you can let her know that, and then she can prepare that for you for your next meeting. That means we vote on another amendment, we'll vote on another amendment.
Okay,
So
that's
Madam Mayor?
is that, yes, sir.
I will remind everyone, the reason this was brought up and changed was because the amount of, or lack of time that the board was given, especially when we had very large packets. And it was decided that we have to have the proper amount of time to analyze all the documentation, whether some of us prefer to read contracts and others don't. It's better to have more than enough than not enough, which we've certainly experienced not having all the information. And that was one of the reasons that it was brought up and decided to give this board more time to have it. And I will remind the board that staff is here to support the board and making decisions with the information they provide. We have to have all the information to make an educated opinion decision for the benefit of the citizens who live here and vote and put us in office.
And I think that they will consider that whenever they are looking at this and getting input from the other directors. So, Christina, with that direction, we'll count on you to get that put together for us.
Yes.
So we're just going to vote this one.
So right now, we are just going to vote on what is before you, which is the amendment to amend Section 7, which literally actually strikes the outdated mention of pagers and removing the existing ban on the use of cell phones.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So we should, Ken, just real quick, so there needs to be some verbiage in our cell phones is the same policy as our citizens where they need to be at least silenced.
Yes, we asked them to silence them.
Technically,
Yes.
we're going to have some verbiage in there.
Well, I think if we, I'm assuming that whenever I ask people to silence their cell phones, that that is including the directors sitting here at this table. Well, then I will, from now on, directly ask the directors to do that. I don't have a problem with that.
I'm just joking.
I think
But
you make it
Mayor-
very clear, Mayor. I think you make it
yeah.
very clear.
Yes.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
the statement does say cell phones should be turned off or put on silent mode and not, well, no, okay, I guess that's the one we're looking at. I thought there was somewhere else, though.
Yeah. We're looking at section 7. Did you see that?
Well, but I did think there was somewhere else that addressed, to Brad's point, cell phones in general for public.
Oh, whenever we're getting ready to, whenever I'm asking for that at the first of the meeting. I think, yes, I think it is in there whenever we're speaking to those, but I don't think it's something that you have to amend. I think
Right.
what you're doing here takes care of that issue, is what I'm understanding from what.
Well, and it sounded like Director Burns was saying it needed to be real clear in our statement that we too needed, that everyone needed to have their cell phones silent. And I thought it was somewhere else in the verbiage, but maybe not, so, okay.
Well, if we remove the use of them during meetings, we're removing the ban. We're removing the ban on use of cell phones. Okay, and pagers, so.
I think if any of our board members have their phone go off, the other board members are pretty well going to let them have it.
I think so. Did you not listen to instructions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, yes, Ken.
I'll just throw in my thoughts on this. I was confused when I first saw this because I think, and I was set straight, but when this was brought up at the last meeting, it was, as section 7 there is cell phones and pagers. I think pagers was the only thing that was actually mentioned to be removed. And I understand the need to, look things up. But my argument to that is that's why we're giving laptops. They can be used during the meetings to look things up, just like a cell phone. The only issue I have, and I have seen it, is cell phones can be a distraction. And I don't, this is a negative, so just forgive me for saying it this way. Yes, we want to be readily available, but I feel like while we're here, that is not the time for citizens to all of a sudden start texting us with questions and whatnot. We're always available. They can catch us before and after meetings. I don't really think during is the time that we are to have dialogue outside of the way we have it at the podium and texting back and forth. To me, that opens up some other issues that could be detrimental. So all that to say, as it stands, I cannot support it. I would rather it, have a little bit of restriction in there, but that's just me.
Thank you, Ken. Anyone else? Comments or questions?
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
So what we just discussed from board members were simply, it's a usage of cell phones. What we think is, what are the ethics of cell phone usage during a board meeting? And I think that's, the question. And so obviously we have several board members that use it for research or for a visual aid. And so my thoughts is striking it completely. I believe there needs to be, because technology as it advances is going to become an issue. And boards are kind of like department heads. They have a hard time policing themselves. And sometimes department heads, when they get a correction from a subordinate, they have a hard time processing that information. And so this is an in-house. This is a policing ourselves up. I clearly stated what Director Wiles just mentioned. That's happening. I think that's inappropriate, so I choose to turn my phone off to be focused on the meeting at hand. I don't know how anybody else uses their phone, but we just got two examples of that's why we need the cell phone on during the board meeting. And so I think striking it from there, I think there needs to be something, because in the future, how many electronic devices as we go on with technology am I going to have in front of me, and can I justify it 20 ways? And so keeping it simple and moving it away, and trusting that board members are focused on the task at hand, or are they distracted and we're not processing that information? It is the only time for us to have open communication and debate, is right now. And in between these things, I have not a clue. I receive emails and I receive texts before these meetings, and I do like my packet early, and I don't care what the amendment, because I dive into it early. And so on the phone usage, it is housekeeping, but Director Wiles has a legitimate point. There's got to be some ethics that go along with the usage of your phone, and that we give each other due respect during the board meeting. And I guess we go on the faith of each other's word that we are doing exactly what we say we're doing with the phone. And I have to believe that that's exactly what you're doing with your phone. Elected official, why would you do anything else on that phone?
Thank you, Brad. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Betsy.
And I think Brad brought up a good point, technology and all there is out there. If I wanted to be chatting with my friends, I could be doing it through email and instant messaging on the iPad or whatever. We're adults. I haven't noticed that anybody is not paying attention and missed the conversation because they were checking emails on their pad or on their phone or anything else. I mean, this is technology today, and we all have some type of electronic sitting in front of us. So what's the difference? We can receive instant messages any way you look at it.
Madam Mayor?
Lisa, and then I'll come to you, David.
I agree with a lot of the comments, but how do you measure ethics? I mean, you can't black and white police complete ethics. You have to, ethics are, moral issues are a given. I mean, that's a measure of yourself. And how do you force your ethics on somebody else? You got to measure it. I haven't seen anybody up here just chatting away, having conversations, and not even paying attention to what's going on in the room. There's a lot of good questions that have come. And I'll admit, I've had citizens, when we're talking about a discussion, being at home, because they aren't here, and for some have had surgery, some can't be here, text and say, well, what about this? And I clarify and I say, I was sent this message and I'm asking this question on behalf of a citizen. And I think that's me representing them. And when you take that representation away from me, I feel like that you're violating my rights at that point. Then I can't represent the citizens how I feel I need to represent them.
David, did you have?
I'll just be the controversial one here, and this was many, many years ago after I was no longer mayor, but I still enjoyed watching the meetings, and I would sometimes attend. But many years ago, it was pretty obvious that you would have some board members that would receive text messages from outside people and immediately then And it was obvious they were being coached by, it no longer occurs, but it did years ago. And it was kind of like, how does that even be allowed by the other board members? I think this should be changed to not delete the whole thing, but to simply say, cell phones should be turned off or put on silent mode and only used in necessary usage or something that doesn't, I don't think anybody's gonna allow our fellow board members to just, as Betsy was saying, just randomly start doing stuff. But I think if you said, and only used for necessary, I don't know what the wordage is, but Brad, do you have a suggestion? I'm saying you should say they should be turned off and put on silent mode, even if we only leave that and get rid of the rest. But I'm saying you could go on past that. You're getting rid of the pager stuff. You're getting rid of the part that says, and not used within the, I didn't even know we had that in here. But get rid of that and just say, and only used in necessary situations.
Madam Mayor.
I actually like the fact we have a board member who is letting us know when the public's not getting the meetings. And Betsy, people, whoever's contact, you have a good rapport that someone, because I can tell you, years ago, we got it to where we weren't having meetings. Something happened technologically and they didn't get recorded at all. So if we're allowed, somebody can let us know that it may look perfect here, but somehow it's not going out or it's not being recorded properly or something. I think that's a good plus of you being able to have.
But if the phone is turned off, if the
Well,
rule
it
is
says
the phone
turned
is
off
turned
or put on
off,
silent. It says turned off or put on silent is what it says. That's what the wordage is now.
So are you through
Well,
with your
I'm
comments?
just saying you could keep that part, the very first section of that first sentence, if we wanted to.
Mindy?
okay, yeah, I was thinking he was saying we needed to say they were turned off, but only used in necessary situations, but if it's turned off, we can't use it, but if it's turned off or silent, you
That's
can
what it says now, is turned
Yeah, it
off
does. You're
or
right. It
on
does.
silent mode, yeah.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Lisa?
Who's the measure of necessary? I mean, the reality is, what is necessary for you may not be necessary for me.
Well, that's where you get to where Brad says you have to have some control or whatever the
As a
word he
board of
used.
director, I have self-control, and somebody can't tell me to have self-control. I need to have that before I get elected or put in this position.
Mayor,
Yes, Brad?
can I make this simple?
You can?
Thank you. 7, my suggestion, cell phones, and then the next sentence would be, cell phones should be turned off or put on silent mode during board meetings. And I just feel like we can't strike it because they're here and it keeps it simple. And then whatever, that's as simple as you can get it, but we need to have a reflection of the same rules that we read to the citizens. I'm sorry, I kept it simple. I apologize in advance. We taught firemen for years. They used to get they get an H tool out and go prying on a door, and we used to go try before you pry, right? PD does the same thing. So the door's unlocked. I would suggest, I would make a recommendation that would answer all those questions, that we get the pager out of there. It keeps us off the date. And then the next generation might have to tackle
AI.
something, yeah, AI. So does that make sense?
You would like to amend the motion to say that item 7 is cell phones and pagers, that cell phones should be turned off or put on silent mode during Board of Directors meetings, period.
Correct.
And get rid of the word pagers in the
Yeah, and
heading.
that- yeah.
Yeah, it would just say cell phone.
Second.
Okay, well, we're not ready, we're not quite ready for that because we
good
haven't
amendment.
had public input yet.
Oh, okay.
So, is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment?
Rebecca Wyatt, 1109 East Jill Street. So I was listening up here when I came up, so I got a little bit more information. But I like a director to have access to their counselors. Some people are really knowledgeable of how to run a city when they get voted onto the board. Other people are brand new at it. And if they have somebody that knows something about an ordinance, and they're giving them counsel during the meeting, and if you're Lisa Risler, you can double dip or triple dip or quadruple dip and never miss what's going on. She's got a brain that just is like a steel trap. So, you know, I really, people need to have access. We have enough cutting of people's ability to know what's going on. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I think it's wonderful that people can get their information so that when you're voting on something, you get to know everything about a past issue. I mean, we were so fortunate to get some information from Katie and Scott Miller about the parks and the past, what's gone on in the past. So there's all kinds of information that can come to a board. I haven't personally talked to anybody here, and I never text anybody during a meeting. But I just think cutting them off from their information and just even updates, like Betsy was saying, you know, that the meeting isn't working. And then also I feel like this just kind of makes them feel like they're not doing their job well, and it makes, I can just kind of go on and on about this one because it really does upset me to tell them they can't have a silent, I don't hear any notifications. They're not doing their work. So I don't know why this has been brought up personally. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Is there anyone else? If not, then I will come back. Apparently, we want to make a motion to amend Resolution 22-25 regarding Section 7 for cell phones and pagers to leave cell phones should be turned off or put on silent mode during Board of Directors meetings. The rest of the remaining language in Section 7 would be deleted. That a motion that you all agree upon? Okay, so do I have a motion stated by a director?
So moved.
And do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. And Christina, you have that all so that you know how that's going to change. Thank you, ma'am. Roll call.
Burns.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Motion is approved, and I am assuming, Christina, you will provide us with an updated version. Thank you very much. With that, we will move to Resolution 23-25, City Attorney Services. And Christina, once again.
With our engagement with Williams Law Firm coming to an end at the end of May, we put out a request for qualifications and received 2. Of those 2, we interviewed both, a panel that included Chris and Janae and I. And without a doubt, Harrington Miller provides the best option for municipal law. And that is the contract that we're putting before you, board, to consider as your city attorney.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions, comments? Yes, Lisa.
So if we approve this, they start the next meeting. We'll have representation at the next meeting.
We will have representation yes, you will have representation at the next meeting, but also we can begin to use them as soon as the contract's signed.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
Christina, I'm just checking to make sure our prosecuting attorney will still stay with the Williams Law Firm, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes?
So talking with Janae, I'm just curious, is there, and I'm not saying this relationship is not going to work, although we do have a recent track record of relationship issues. And I'm looking out there, I'm praying that it works well. But looking out to the future and beyond my term and going forward, we both agreed that, the way we put this out, just having two firms respond seemed pretty weak. And so I'm sure you've had that same discussion. And so I'm just, in the future, if there's any other way we can get, we can use other platforms so that potentially we could get more folks interested. You can have a larger pool. I know that's been some of our concerns on other areas with contracts, not having enough options. We just discussed it earlier with 1898. So, this is moving forward, and I support it 100%. Just looking out to the future, what can we do to get more folks interested? Although I think the pool's pretty limited on this service, so I think we agree on that. But it was concern, we discussed, and I just wanted to be open with it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. David?
I will attest, and some other board members on this board may also attest, that we have used this firm long ago to great success. And I think it behooves the city to have an actual firm rather than employ active city attorney, because you have all the advantages of many, many attorneys and many years of experience and all the resources that can bring. Steve Miller of the Miller used to sit right over there and did us a great job. Mickey Harrington used to be the attorney for the hospital when the city still owned the hospital. And both did really, really good jobs for the city. And then, I don't know if people are aware, but Tom Kicklack, out here in the audience, used to work for the AML, Arkansas Municipal League. So a lot of experience there. So we appreciate them putting in an application on the RFQ. Thank you. And I will say, Madam Mayor, I appreciated the Williams Law Firm, Jay Williams in Gentry, and Joel, and all the rest of the team there, coming in from late 23 up until this last month, taking us to the next level. It was the first time we've had a firm since Harrington Miller was here, and they did us a good job, and I appreciate what they did. So, thank you.
Thank you, David. Anyone else? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address Resolution 23-25? There is not. Directors, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 23-25 for City Attorney Services?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. I would like to echo David's comments. I was on the board, and whenever Harrington Miller represented us before, and Tom has also been here, and we went through a pretty lengthy litigation that they guided us through, and I appreciate that. We are excited about you being here. We look forward to your services. And I do also want to say thank you to Jay. They did a really good job. He is an excellent attorney. And so I think we have been well represented. So with that, now we will move to our administrator's report. Christina?
Oh, I'm amazed, but this week we do not have any expenditures in excess of $30,000. So, the storm cleanup efforts included a significant amount of tree debris resulting in excess mulch at the transfer station, and they are welcoming citizens to come and pick up that mulch free of charge.
Perfect.
So the summer reading program kicked off today at the public library, and there are events and prizes, something basically for every age group. We encourage people to check out the program details on the city's website. Parks and Recreation is hosting a kids fishing derby this Saturday from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. in Sager Creek behind Fire Station 2. And lastly, the 4th of July block party will be back for a second year, and staff has started the planning process. It'll be held, of course, July 4th from 5 p.m. until fireworks. And we are excited to welcome two-time Arkansas Country Music Entertainer of the Year, Tyler Kinch, to headline the party. Thank you.
It's like a good time. Thank you, Christina. So with that, we will move to our director's reports. David, I'm going to start with you tonight, and Mindy, we will end with you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did have a question on, Christina, on storm cleanup, on debris. I've seen piles of limbs and trees and stuff still sitting out. Is that done being picked up, or do people need to call about it being picked up, or what's the situation?
My understanding is that they are trying to work their way around town, but like in the case of our tree limbs, they were not down, my husband went out and did some damage control after the fact, so they had already come through our neighborhood. So you can contact Tracy at sanitation, and she'll put you on the schedule.
I didn't know. I've had people ask, and then I've also seen it, so I just wanted to clarify.
But they're also running regular debris pickup as
Okay.
well.
That was my question, is are they still running it? Okay.
Yeah, they'll
good.
still pick up your limbs monthly like normal.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to extend my appreciation to the PPS, what was it called? Public Plan Spaces, something. Can't think of the name of it, PPS, the grant that we got for the park, I was appreciative, and the funding that they received from the Walton Family Foundation. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate Travis and the whole team working on doing that. I am firmly believing that and I brought this up at the last meeting, I don't know why it's still an issue, every meeting regarding the Unified Development Code needs to be streamed, it needs to be open to everyone, and I don't know why it would not be being held in this room here, but I firmly believe that we need to do whatever we have to do. If changing the date is required, that the public does not get enough chances to chime in on major changes to city code. And this is about as major as you can get on things that directly affect every citizen. So I think we have got to go the extra mile. We cannot be exclusive that it's only people who have previously complained or talked or come to other meetings or whatever. This has to be as open of a town meeting as possible. And I would really like to, again, encourage our staff that we do whatever we have to make that work. I want to say, I already did say, but just again, thank you to Jay Williams' firm and Joel Kurtz and the rest of them for doing a good job and stepping in to take us to the next level of having attorney services. And we appreciate that. And then my apologies to the representatives of Harrington Miller here being the very last thing on the agenda. We still make mistakes of having items, resolutions, ordinances, whatever, that have to do with people that travel here being put after things that only involve staff or the board and on housekeeping stuff. And so we're still learning, and so I apologize. Well, it's frustrating to see, and we do that sometimes. I mean, I've seen other people come from far off, and it's just a matter of not realizing that some of these other things that staff may think are gonna zip by, actually, with this board, we all know, can have a long discussion, and they're thought out, you know? So my apologies to you guys, but thank you. And I think that's it, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I thought it was a good discussion tonight, good meeting.
Absolutely. And on that note, David, I'm sorry. I think that perhaps maybe we need to have you all come
To recognize.
up so that this board can actually see your faces and.
Very briefly. I'm Heather Owens, so I was the Assistant City Attorney in Jonesboro for about the last decade and have now relocated to Northwest Arkansas. So.
We're lucky to have Heather join us. I'm Tom Kicklack, and really looking forward to it.
Perfect.
Say your
Thank you
name
all very
again, Tom.
much.
How do you, kick, clack.
Yes.
All right, kick, clack.
Director Allen.
Well, I hope you know, last year, the official candy of Siloam became the Kit Kat. So I'm just telling you. Yeah. Our kids locally voted that. So, yeah. Yeah. So Tom Kit Kat. All right. Thank you guys for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you all very much. I suppose, Brad, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just call you Tom. I'm going to save you the hassle on that last part. I know this is what I'm going to request is going to require some of it fellow board members, but I would like to see a workshop on the next board meeting on the 17th, specifically for the headwaters funding and wastewater improvements. We've got a packet here. I made a site visit with Tony. I was concerned when we did the walkthrough with our previous city administrator. I've received an email and calls from people that are in the industry of things that I'm not aware of because I'm like many of you with my waste. I just use the modern technology, and I think we have something in front of us that is extremely significant. I would bring up that GRDA has at times from Chewy Bridge down to the headwaters of Lake Tinkiller recommended not being in the water. There is a recommendation on the upper Osage and things that feed into into the Illinois River that we have upstream users that are making discharges, recommendations such as not going in the water with an open sore. I can go on. It is concerning. The amount of rain that we have had has saturated sewer lines, and these old septic systems are not up to date, and they leach into the lower and come in through your springs and filtrate into our water. It is an upstream problem and is a downstream problem. We are a direct discharge into Oklahoma, and my concern is we don't become like the poultry industry experience. I shimmer at the idea of a large fish kill, and we've had that before from City Lake and some SWEPCO issues. So in Sager Creek, I just think we're beyond emails. I think we're a little bit deeper. We did have good email correspondence, and the reason I normally don't correspond on email, but for our FOIA friends, when you see me email, then I want you to FOIA. So thank you. I think the word urgency is at hand. So if we could consider that. Second, to get back to the airport, I'm wondering if we would look at reconsidering having the acting city administrator at least having a conversation with the folks that were interested in buying the airport. Number one, for the main purpose of what is the value of that asset? So I also took the time to meet with James, and over the next 5 to 6 years in the budget, they are going to be requesting some significant things that I don't think we're going to be willing to pay for. And I think the airport is going in an area, it's always going to be an airport. But the question is, do we need to own that airport? And then the second one would be, it'd be interesting, and I was a no vote, so I want to be clear, but it would be interesting to see what is the number of somebody that was interested in purchasing the airport. So it's worth investigating. I think it's just a little bit of time and conversation. And you know the numbers, I don't know the numbers, and I won't go into the details of the payback with grants and all that. So we're not there, but I'm just curious if we're interested in that number. And then second is, I think tonight, and I appreciate Sager Creek as an asset. I look forward to us continuing that conversation. I don't want to leave out the community building as a restoration project and the Legionnaires. For some reason, when you get back on the board, we have we have a Saturday morning coffee, and I don't hit it all the time, and we're not supposed to talk about politics, but it's like a barber shop. It's just what happens. So, they're on board, and they're kind of excited, and they have some ideas. And then lastly, last Sunday, there's a group from Post 29. We go out, we replace flags. The storms have kept us busy. They're not going to ask for additional funding, but it might be a consideration in the future. JW, they seem to have it under control. But what I did find over by Sellers in the ditch was our flag. It's our third flag. She got ripped off in the storm. And so where your neighbors become friends too, I think that was our thing. I don't really want to give it back because it looks like it's been through a small war, but it's in my truck. I'll give it to you. I don't know if we have another one, but it's gone.
Yeah.
So just give you a heads up. That's what we found Sunday morning in the ditch. And other than that, that is all. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I address something he brought up about the sewer, or the wastewater, I should say, wastewater? A lot of people don't realize that when that wastewater plant was built, there was nothing out there. It was city property and we didn't have a lot of city property besides the airport, but JPU wasn't near the size it is now. And I have heard over the years, and have kind of talked to some people over the years, that possibly we ought to just raise enough money to just build a new sewer plant somewhere else. I'm just saying, it's a thought. It's a thought, because we're landlocked with the state line there. And really, we're limited. And I mean, Brad knows, we're gonna have to spend some money. We know we are. And it's just a question of, do we keep putting it in the same location, or do we come up with a whole new plan? And then on the airport, hey, we all used to just all believe that we were gonna own the hospital forever. And at some point, all good things come to an end, and we've agreed we want the airport to remain, but that doesn't mean we have to retain ownership. So I was not in favor of one, but I agree. We ought to at least know what somebody would pay for it, because that's an asset. So good point.
Thank you, sir. Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Christina, I also am looking forward to what we're able to find out concerning the headwaters and what we need to do to get ourselves in the right place with that. So thank you for that.
So the headworks, just as a preview, you guys have already approved the engineering for that. But we are potentially going to propose something a little more, and I guess at the workshop, we'll just kind of put you on notice, because we have a significantly bigger issues that we're going to have to deal with than just the headworks.
We look forward to hearing about it.
I'm not sure we're looking forward to it.
It's a dirty job.
I do want to say welcome to our attorneys. Thank you. We look forward to a good relationship. And reason I'm looking forward to hearing what's happening is because I'm encouraged with the way that we have taken a proactive approach in how we're dealing with our city and how we're working toward solution and how we're involving not just the departments, but other agencies within our city and just with the community, and I appreciate it. I thank you for it. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Lisa?
I brought this up last meeting, and I'm going to bring it up again on Friday, June 13th, from 12 to 6 p.m. The Siloam Springs Boots, Badges, and Bandages Blood Drive. Anybody that participates, they're going to have a friendly competition between the police and the fire, so whoever you want to support. And then, I'm not going to say publicly who I'm supporting.
You already did last
Who's being the nicest? No, I'm joking. On June 14th, our local VFW, Post 1674, is having a flag retirement ceremony. And if you haven't ever participated in one of those, they're amazing. They teach you, they go through the folds of the flag, what they represent, and then you have the veterans there explaining the whole ceremony to you. And they allow you and children or whoever to participate, and they burn the flags. But you get to actually participate actively and do that. So I encourage anybody. It starts at 11 o'clock, and it's June 14th. First Friday Coffee is June 6th at Jordan Spenson, State Farm Insurance at 7:30. The last thing I wanted to bring up, and I'm glad you brought that up, David, is Constitution Camp is going on again this year. It's going to be July 14th. It's on a Monday. And they're hoping that the Board of Directors will welcome them back again with another resolution. They're going to do the same procedure that they did last year. And so what they do is when campers sign up, they're given an ID. And just like you're required to have an ID to vote, they go up, they have to have that ID. If they don't have their ID, they got to go find their ID. And then they get to go up and they get to vote. And then they vote on the candy that they want, their favorite candy. And there's write-ins and everything. And what's amazing is whenever they vote and then we announce the winners, they always say, well, how did that one win? Do you know anybody that voted for that? I mean, it's so real life for them. And it's such a great experience. And if you guys are okay with welcoming them back and having another resolution for this year, we'll probably be surprised at what candy they select because everybody was disappointed Kit Kat was the winner. But I want to make sure it's okay with the Board of Directors still, and if they're welcome back. But I do want to encourage anybody that has children, school age, that would like to participate. It is July 14th. And you
they
can
are
find it
welcome.
online.
And they are welcome.
Thank you. We had a great time, and the city was great. And seeing how the resolution works, and it was an amazing event.
Is there an egg thing Friday morning? Egg?
Yeah, but I didn't want to bring it up. Oh, I can.
You're ripping. Yes,
So-
absolutely.
So my daughter she has a rope farm stand. She's been selling eggs for 3 years. As a 4-H project, she uses the money to buy show animals and uses the money for the feed and for the veterinary bills. And so now she's going to grow into a farm stand. She got a license through the city. She's now a chamber member, and we're having a ribbon cutting Friday at 9 a.m. if the rain allows, if we don't have rain, at 9 a.m. So everybody is welcome to come see what she has. She has all kinds of stuff. She has eggs, plants that she grew from seeds, crafts she sews. So she sewed bows and pillows, and so she's all kinds of stuff.
Tell us the address.
Oh, 3024 South Elm Street.
And how old is she?
She's 8.
Probably your youngest chamber member, I'd imagine, right?
And she's going to have she has a calf for next year. So she'll show next year. She has to bottle feed this year and grow into it. So it'll be a steer next year, a bull right now. And so she's going to have that there for people to pet. And her baby chicks that she's showing this year.
Very good. She's learning a lot from Mama. Betsy.
I wanted to say thank y'all for being here.
I wondered who the people I didn't recognize were, so now I know. Brad mentioned it, and David had originally mentioned using the Oklahoma sale money to fix up the community building, but I know the Oklahoma sale money hadn't gone through just yet. Do you have any idea where that is, or?
I don't, but I will follow up.
Okay, thank you. And I wondered, I understand the need with the wastewater and all of that, but then there are also requirements that we're going to have to meet that haven't come back. So then I've wondered, how can we, to some extent, have all the information at a workshop when we don't even know what we're going to need?
We won't have all the information. We'll give you as much information as we have and potentially talk about different funding options. But I think that we can do until we actually know what actual costs are and what the permitting is going to allow or going to require us to do with the upgrade.
Okay, and there's really, it's the government, so there's really no way we can hurry them up to find out what we're gonna be required.
We've
as
been
I sit here
waiting
in my
over 10
government
years
seat.
for a permit.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're just working under a really old permit.
Wow, yeah. Another thing, the UDC, I appreciated that Rebecca Wyatt got up and spoke. I think public input and conversation all in the same room, a town hall type meeting, we're all limited in what we can see, what our own frame of reference is. And we have all kinds of citizens out there who are experts and they're knowledgeable. And sometimes it can be somebody who's not even in the field and they just look at something and they have common sense. And so I think it's really important to include public input because as maybe I think it was Director Allen said, I mean, this is the future of the city. These codes are to regulate our future, our citizens. And I think it's really important that they have the opportunity to sit down and share with staff and share with us and with each other and see what comes out of it. Because like I said, we each come from our own frame of reference and we can only see what we can see. And sometimes somebody else will come along and have a fantastic idea that none of us thought of. So the last thing, 1 month from tomorrow is 4th of July. And how many animals are gonna get lost and freak out and run away? So everybody who's listening, call your veterinarian right now and leave a message that you need to make an appointment to get medications for them, or maybe you need to get them microchipped. Yes, please don't wait until the week before and then wonder why you can't get in. So now is the time to do it. There will be fireworks on the 4th of July. There are animals who will freak out. I have one of those. I have scars to prove it. So put collars on your dogs. Go get tags with your number and address on them. Go get them chipped. Go get whatever medication you need for them because now is the time to do it. And not just dogs, cats also. Yeah, so keep that in mind. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. So, Ken?
Yes. Well, there's not a whole lot I can add to what's been said. A lot of good things. But I will address, and thank you, Brad, for bringing up the community building. Just as it so happens, this afternoon, Christina and Jason and myself were up there looking at some problems. And, you know, there's so many things and places in this town that is, or that are, so important to our culture and our identity, and that is one of them, the community building. And there are a lot of things that need to be taken care of in there that, in the short time that we were there, that we pointed out and saw, from trim that is about to fall off the ceiling all the way up to critter remains. And so thank you for bringing that up, Brad. I know that Christina and the others are looking into it, but it is something that needs to be addressed, and it's not going to be cheap. It may not even be easy, but I think we need to look at that seriously. And it may be something that we just take care of with little bites as time goes by, but it is something that has to be addressed. I guess that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mindy?
As a few others have already said, welcome to our new attorneys. Thank you for answering the RFQ and being willing to serve in that capacity. I think it was Betsy that one of you asked for the status of grant money of some sort.
Land sale.
Oh, the land sale, okay. Money anyway. I'm wanting the status of the grant money for Main Street and the bridge that we were promised a year plus ago. Do we know?
I have emailed, and I will email again, but they are not responding. And my understanding is that if you didn't already have a signed agreement, then your contract was under review. Everybody's was, and they're going to go through them one by one and read every single contract before they move forward.
Okay, so maybe a while before we hear about that. I do concur with the need to get as much information as we can about the Headwaters project and just the wastewater treatment plant in general. Sounds like we have some needs that are going to involve spending rather than accepting that money that we hope we get one day. But I understand you won't have a lot of information at the next meeting, but I do think we really need to be starting to focus on what we can do there. And it's not a pretty project, not pretty and fun, but definitely a needed project. So with that, I move that we adjourn this meeting and go home.
Second.
Do I have a second? We do have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.